Isn't this a sports show?
How do I make a button work over here?
Do I need to come in there?
No, absolutely not. Not allowed.
I don't know what you've done.
At the commercial break, by the way, we'll fix this. We'll Freaky Friday our way back.
Well, we'll see.
Maybe.
Will we?
I don't know.
Almost entirely.
How do I play
Just
a
click.
clicky button?
Click. You just
Click one
part
of the
3 has
buttons.
to be on. You click on it.
What did you do?
This is Almost Entirely Sports with Joshua Brisco.
Which hotkey are you clicking? What are you trying to click?
I don't want to tell you. Don't come in here, Beers. No, Beers, go away!
But see, if you don't, I know you don't want to tell us, but at some point, you kind of have to
I'm
give us
trying not to hit
something
the
so we can
breaking
make it
news
work.
one, and it's not playing.
Is cart 3 up?
Yes.
Take the show with you by listening on the Sports Radio 810 mobile app at 810WHB.com or by searching for Almost Entirely Sports wherever you get your podcasts.
Oh, hi, Jason.
Hey, ask Jason.
So why isn't this playing?
Oh, it's because this is old audio. It's being rejected. You have jammed up the whole. I need to reboot it.
See, I asked you if there was text in the top left corner.
April Fool's, Jason.
No, I'm kidding.
Okay.
This is Almost Entirely Sports on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Happy Monday. Happy early Monday. It's 6 o'clock, and you got Almost Entirely Sports in your ears, baby. Let's go. You know what else we got today? Seth Keysor on a Monday. What's going on? It's like 70 degrees outside. We have the door open, and it's really pleasant. What a fun. You know what? You know what today is? It's not a Monday. Today's a fun day. We got an early Almost Entirely Sports for you. We got Seth Keysor on a Monday. Weather's nice. I'm in a t-shirt. Shaved my beard a little bit today. Feeling a little less puffy. Rudy's got a haircut. I mean, we just got good energy coming into this week. Rudy shrugged. I feel like right now in this moment in time, we got good. I like that intro a lot. It might be where a lot of my unearned confidence comes from because that segment was objectively bad radio as I was running the board. Beards and Rudy were in the studio.
That was pretty good.
Well, but here's the thing. It's objectively bad radio. You heard Jason far away from the microphone being stressed out about how much I had broken everything. And man, it's a good bit. It was such a good segment. That intro makes me so happy.
I miss the early days of our new wide orbit when it was constantly breaking because we were still, just learning all the bells and whistles of it.
And I never learned it at all. So for me, I was just clicking buttons. That didn't mean anything to me. I was trying to play the Vanilla Ice liner, by the way, that whole time. I don't know if that was ever. I think eventually that was revealed in that segment. But maybe that intro just puts me in a good mood too. Whenever it's a little nice out, got the door open, little sunset, little AES before dark. AES after dark is the thing. AES before dark, though, we're gonna talk about baseball. Actually, believe it or not, but sort of in a very macro way. Don't go anywhere.
That's when we don't do our normal thing of talk Pokemon the day after a Pokemon thing is announced. We're like, no, it's baseball.
You're right. And we don't have a show tomorrow night.
You know why? Because it's not dark outside.
Here's what I can promise you, then, Rudy, and let's make it. I wrote this in my Google Doc. Let's make a note of this. Wednesday, we're on from 9 to 11. 11 to 9 would be too much radio. I do not want to do a show from 11 to 9. That would be a long shift. 9 to 11, though, that's Almost Entirely Sports After Dark. Somewhere in there, we'll make some time to talk about the fact that a new generation of Pokemon got announced with 3 new starters. I have opinions, but they're not here. AES Before Dark, we're going to talk about baseball. That's actually just how things fell this week.
Because games are coming, right? Baseball is going to play games, right, Josh?
So we'll talk to Seth here in
Josh,
about 40.
don't do this to me, right?
We'll talk to Seth in about 45 minutes or so. And he's got a bunch of pieces that we haven't talked about here on AES since we last chatted with him. Some really good stuff, too. I had looked at, I don't remember the specifics of all of these, but I went back through and went through all 3 of his most recent stories again today after I'd looked at some. I read one of them and I'd scan one and save one for, I can't remember the mix of them all. But this batch of 3 stories is about as good as Seth gets, I think. I won't tell him that, of course. But the Orlando Brown film review, I left that story with a little bit of a different opinion on what the Chiefs what the Chiefs' mindset should be. Charvarius Ward is a fascinating case that we need to spend some more time talking about over the course of this offseason before free agency hits. That's a big deal. He just happens to be a free agent on a team that's also going to have Orlando Brown and Tyrann Mathieu hitting free agency. Dan Sorensen also, like 4 huge pieces.
And Dan Sorensen.
What were the 4 pieces that I said there, Rudy?
I don't know.
Did you hear the 4 names that I said? It was Orlando Brown, Tyrann Mathieu, Javarius Ward, and Dan Sorensen.
Here's the thing. I did not count how many names you had said. I knew there was a chance of it, but I felt like it was one of those jokes you still just go for.
Oftentimes on this show, you'll hear Rudy and I arrive at the joke at the exact same time, and then we fight to get it out first. What you just heard, dear listener, and really soak this in, really enjoy this moment here on a fun day, is that Rudy did not hear me make the Dan Sorensen joke, but also independently came up with that joke and then delivered it himself.
Yes.
You can honestly decide. I'm not saying that first is best. I will leave it up to you to decide if Rudy's version of that joke was better than my version of that joke. Just do know that Rudy did not hear it.
Definitely did not. Almost definitely wasn't listening. Not because I was ignoring you, though.
No, you're working.
I was doing some legit things. Yes. I heard names going. I heard Dan Sorensen's name with other Chiefs names. I heard four big players. I was like, I got a Daniel Sorensen joke here. Let's roll with it. I figured. My guess was I did not think you were making a joke.
That's right.
I figured you weren't making a joke. I figured my joke wouldn't fully make sense because I figured the four names include Dan Sorensen. But I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go for it anyways.
Shoot or shoot.
Sometimes you just got to step up to the plate, you got to point to the outfield, and you just got to swing for a home run on the first pitch. And sometimes it's going to be a changeup, and you're going to look real dumb.
And you're going to have your cleats corkscrewing into the dirt.
Yeah, but sometimes you're going to be Jorge Soler in the World Series, and you're going to hit one out on the very first pitch, which I think he did, but not 100% certain that he did. He definitely did in his first at-bat. I think it was the first pitch. If I'm wrong, tweet at JB Brisco.
And look, Rudy, to your point, sometimes you got to be Jorge Soler in the World Series. You know, you just got to take a swing. Wait, did you already? Oh.
I thought you were going to make a butt strain joke when you said
No,
Jorge
I just
Soler.
was going to repeat your joke back to you.
That was your joke was better.
No, you know your joke was better. Now tell me my joke was better.
My joke was better.
Agreed. You know what? My joke was better. Okay, we're done. That bit's dead. The bit was birthed and then killed, and it's over and buried. Goodbye, bit.
And it ended in baseball.
And exactly. Speaking of digging graves for baseball-related things, hello, Major League Baseball. Hop on in. So here's the thing. Part of this is just going to be me quoting Jeff Passan at various shapes, and forms. Okay. This was the tweet from earlier in the day, okay? MLB suggested in the first meeting with the MLBPA today that the league is willing to cancel a month's worth of games. What that means, whether it's simply a threat, is unclear, but players have taken it as a clear threat. The owners have told the players they're willing to cancel a month of games while the ongoing lockout continues. And frankly, like if you want to get the takedown of the league's side of this, I'll give you some passing tidbits. You should go read his article up on ESPN. I'm not actually here tonight, and maybe this will change on Wednesday, and maybe this will change on Friday, maybe this will change in a month. But I'm not here tonight with the interest in who's in the wrong, who should give, why is this happening. If you're a regular around this show, like you probably know, my inclination is always players over teams. Inclination. There are instances where that's not always the case, but my default stance is that if you're talking about millionaires versus billionaires, I'll side with the labor and the workforce. If you're talking about, players having power, I think that's typically a good thing for players to have a legitimately sized voice, where oftentimes their voices are severely minimized because of 30 or 32 owners, depending on sports and whatnot, right? That can ultimately sort of just push them away, because if you're an NFL player in particular, your career, you'd be lucky to have a 3-year career. You'd be lucky to make the money you can make as an undrafted free agent or Lord willing, a draft pick. owners can sit around forever and they could let you miss games. They've got plenty of money elsewhere. They can go to their many bajillions of savings accounts, and their way of life will not change when you miss a month of seasons. And neither were like Max Scherzer's, to be clear here, right? None of this is really, this is where this conversation gets super bastardized. This isn't Max Scherzer versus John Sherman, okay? You're talking about an entirety of a baseball workforce. With baseball also, especially once you start talking about the minor league systems, which are really bleeped up.
They're trainees, Josh.
The seasonal apprentices, I believe, at one point was the phrase.
Yes, I was looking this up the other day because they did also refer to them as trainees. I found on the website, but I was like, that wasn't the funny thing.
They're basically they're trying to tell you that minor league baseball players are interns.
Yes. Back in like the 1600s, like basically the way life worked was like as a kid at some point when you're 15 or 16, you approached a blacksmith or any profession, right?
A cobbler.
And you were like, hey, I went to apprentice under you, right?
Yes.
Apprentice?
You can treat me terribly for 10 years, but at the end I'll be good at blacksmithing.
Yeah, and then I'll take over, right? And this is how we do it, right? Like this is like that was how they did it 400 years ago.
Right.
And baseball was just like, you know what? It's a pretty good model. Maybe we should do that.
Cleveland really screwed up with their name change. It could have just been like the Cleveland Surfs. That's basically it. That's the right medieval era, right? Not S-U-R-F, but S-E-R-F-S. Or they could have gone Smurfs and really just, I don't know why that would have been better. It's just kind of funny to think of a professional baseball team being called the Cleveland Smurfs. Also, still better than Commanders. So, what? Who said that? Is that even true? I'm not sure. But all of that is actually not the thing that today I want to talk about, because what really caught my eye as these tweets were coming in midday today is the fact that I don't know that I could tell you the last time that we really talked about baseball in a way that felt any sort of meaningful or that was really about baseball. And I don't just mean like, we didn't talk about it during the Chiefs season, obviously. We talked to Lesky a couple of weeks ago. I love talking to Lesky. I love talking to... We have a rotation of guys that I really love talking about baseball with on the show. I'm thrilled to talk to Lesky and Alec Lewis and Max Reaper and certainly some others that I'm going to immediately regret not mentioning. But like I enjoy the conversations that come around baseball with the people that are covering it really closely on a day-to-day basis, with other people who love baseball. I grew up loving baseball. Baseball was my favorite sport until I was maybe, 13 or 14 or something like that. And the thing that bums me out and the thing that sort of washed over me today is that for at least like 10 months out of the year, baseball is a thought experiment. Baseball is an abstract. Baseball is non-fungible for the vast majority of the year. And not in the way that like the vast majority of the time we spend talking about football is talking about the transactional stuff. We're going to talk about Charvarius Ward later. We'll talk about him as a football player, but also we'll talk about him from a salary cap standpoint, right? Like we could talk about Charvarius Ward for the next 3 days straight and not actually get any closer to what's going to happen when he hits the market. I don't mean that. I really like that stuff. I love the team building. I love the strategy. I love talking about analytics. I love going through the film with people who know what they're seeing. I don't mean that we talk about it whenever it's not just sport being played. I mean, even the conversations we have when baseball is being played, those conversations are typically about why baseball isn't more fun to watch. Baseball, hey, is this baseball season too long? We're here in the dog days of summer, and I'm tired of watching baseball. Is baseball too long? Should we fix baseball? Or, dog days of summer, I'm just glad there's something on television. Aren't you glad that baseball's there in the background, like when our G-Paw used to listen to it on the radio? Ah, yes. Remember the nostalgia of baseball? I'm not sure I could name a player from every team, but man, wasn't it great whenever Grandpa had the radio on? Even those conversations Even those conversations are talking about baseball, the idea. Now we talk about baseball, the negotiating tactic. In fact, the negotiating object. This is a point that Passon makes, but like in sports, you have ownership and labor, right? And you have that throughout most of capitalism. But in sports, this is Passon's point, the players are the product. They don't make the product. You go to McDonald's and your workforce there is making the product, which is your land, air, and sea sandwich, which is an abomination. And maybe that would solve the lockout, as if you just forced a bunch of MLB owners to either agree to a deal or eat that land, air, and sea burger from McDonald's. But the burger is the product. And in sports, the players are the product. The reason that strikes can work, not that we've seen many of them at all in my lifetime. I was born in 1994. So I just remember looking up like, oh, who won the World Series the year I was born? There wasn't one? What? Was that allowed?
Royals.
No, it wasn't them.
O.J. Simpson.
Closer, I guess. But whenever, like, if NFL players, and this is probably not going to happen ever, but if any league of players said, yeah, we're actually just not going to play, go get our backups. And I don't mean our backups. I mean go get the next 53. You'd be able to tell. You watch a weekend of college football and go watch a weekend of NFL football. You'll tell. You'll be able to tell. Watch our beloved USFL around the corner. If you watch the AAF or the XFL at all, you can tell. You might be able to get to a world where just the quarterbacks could do this and you would be able to tell and no one else would have to miss a paycheck or whatever. That's bigger picture. But whenever baseball is happening, we talk about making baseball better. When baseball isn't happening, we talk about how baseball is a chip currently used in these negotiations where the owners hold an outsized amount of the financial and sort of political power, but the players themselves are the product. If you're a baseball fan, congratulations. You're a poker chip. You might be the cards. I'm not sure which part of the analogy. You know what I know you're not? You're not playing. You are pawns on the chessboard. I'm gonna eventually get us to Settlers of Catan. Like, we're gonna get some board game references up in here. You are a pawn. You're being moved around. Baseball at this point is hoping you care enough to notice that their games aren't happening. And they're hoping that you care enough to be mad at the other side. Even whenever we talk about baseball, we talk about why we discuss it the way that we do. We talk about why young people don't like it. We talk about why the game isn't evolving enough. We talk about why, again, like older fans losing touch with evolving generations. I will always have a sweet spot for the late 90s, early 2000s Yankees and Diamondbacks for that matter. Maybe a little bit of the Royals, but it was less so. I was approximately 8. Give me a break or don't. I don't really care. But I am more confident that I would recognize Jorge Posada and Tino Martinez walking into the studio right now than I am that I would recognize their modern, currently actively playing equivalents. I'm not sure I can come up with a funny name to give you right now. That's where I'm at. And it's not even that baseball is just like meeting the end of its life cycle. It's weird to me that watching baseball today, the news today, which basically to me is that they will probably cancel a decent number of games. Because if owners are just going to make a threat, I don't know why this would be the time to move players off their spot. And obviously, owners never actually had today being a real deadline because they're now saying they're willing to cancel games. That didn't change 6 hours ago. But what hit me kind of funny today also is that I see baseball slipping away. I see it this season slipping away. I see it bigger picture, though, just drifting from me. Or maybe I'm drifting from baseball. I don't know. I think it's probably both. And it didn't even really make me that sad. That might have been the weird new emotion today. Is I look at the idea of a bunch of owners now changing their stance and saying this was our deadline to go, you know what, we're willing to cancel a month's worth of games if you want us to pay minor league players more. And that's, an oversimplification. I understand. But I see those tweets and those reports out of the negotiations, and my instinct isn't to go, oh no, please work this out. I don't want to watch my friends fight. My reaction is, F them. All right, fine. Hey, if you don't really care if I'm watching your sport, if you're going to put it on a new streaming service or a channel that is impossible to get without hardline cable, if I have to borrow Rudy's dad's login to watch your games, you know what, man? I'll watch it where it's convenient for me. I'll find my way because it's a part of my job. But I'm doing that out of some obligation more than I'm doing it out of a real desire to hear center field blasting through my speakers again. I feel like either I'm drifting or baseball is, and maybe I'm drifting and baseball's on a speedboat to the edge of the earth. But I see that separation happening, and the thing that I am most sad about is that I have always loved baseball, and my grandparents always loved baseball. And I just kind of see it going. And I'm barely waving the hanky.
Hit me up if you need that login.
I gotta tell you, I don't. I did tell you, Rudy, that at one point I would want it just by the first game of the regular season. And so if you want to just keep that, in your head, maybe I'll get it from you in September. We finally get the thing that really could save baseball, which is just one game every Sunday for 17 weeks. Could we sort that out? MLB can't just be red zone, strike zone. Boom, got it in one. Easy. MLB strike zone. I think that actually is a thing that MLB Network does for that sometimes.
Coming to Peacock.
Put it on it. You know what? I can watch Peacock from my Roku TV, so I'll take it.
I don't know if you saw this. I don't know all the specifics of it. Baseball and NBC are working on something about putting games on Peacock. I
didn't see that. Great.
This was I saw the tweet right before the show started, literally in the 30 seconds before the show started. I don't know anything about it yet. I haven't clicked on it. I haven't seen if it means all games are going there, right? If that's where you would just watch. If you go to if you're a Premier League fan, right?
Mm-hmm.
I watch all of Everton's games on Peacock, unless it's on one Daddy NBC, right?
Right.
It's on the main channel.
Did you call it Daddy NBC?
That's what it is. That's what they are. Or USA Network now, because NBC Sports are IP.
Right.
Yeah. So I don't know if the plan is, or the potential of it is that's just where you go. All baseball, you'll obviously have local broadcast, but they will all be in one place that you can find instead of, Bally Sports or all of this other nonsense. That would be better. And
also,
then occasionally, if the Royals are ever good and Bobby Witt's running, on an MVP race, maybe we'll play some games on Daddy NBC.
Also coming to Peacock in April, unicorn races, another thing that doesn't currently exist.
Got me excited for nothing.
The Rob Manfred story. You got me excited for nothing. I don't know. Maybe this is just me looking for some baseball therapy or to find out if other people are having the same experience. But the idea of, hey, everything is just, hey, hi, we're Major League Baseball. And one thing that we have learned over millions of dollars we've spent in our own internal researching, and we really have been pouring over to figure out how we can continue to grow the game, this great sport, America's pastime. One thing we've decided to do at great personal cost to ourselves, our owners might lose a tiny bit of money off of this even, which is insane. Our players are maybe going to have a tiny bit less revenue in the pool, but probably not. The thing that we are going to do at great personal cost to ourselves, those minor inconveniences, is we are going to, hard for me to even say it. We are going to work to make our games accessible to more people to watch more easily. This is a tremendous sacrifice. We are nearly moved to tears. But what's something we're going to do for you, our beloved baseball fans, is we're not going to make you pick one of 2 providers or pay $30 a month to watch your team lose 100 games. You're welcome.
Bad news, it seems like they're actually going to make you do both of those things. So here's the story. Here's kind of the report. Is basically both Apple and NBC are interested in broadcasting games. This year, Apple, it sounds like, would pay the majority. The fees would range somewhere in between 100 to 150 million, with Apple paying the majority of that, with games streaming on either, I would assume, Apple Plus or Peacock. So from my understanding is all the teams will still play on there, would have their local TV contracts, right? So that for us, that's Bally Sports, Kansas City. And some select games would be on Peacock or Apple Plus. You got to have both if you really want to watch the Royals. Now, maybe those are also streaming on Bally as well. There'll be the dual local national broadcast thing. That's possible. But there is one hindrance to this potential deal.
Yeah.
Can you guess what that is?
Baseball, Bally, owners, money. Oh, God, is it terrestrial cable companies?
No.
Dan Sorensen.
They need to play actual games. Which as of right now, baseball has a chance to possibly make like $150 million to stream some games. And the owners are like, nah.
Can I just talk about media accessibility for a second? And like this is for me it's not this lockout, or it's not games during COVID. It's not any one of these things for baseball. It's that they've bleeped up so many things so miraculously all together. It's why in one rare instance I really do think it's somewhat fair to just blame the commissioner for a bunch of things, because like, man, you've effed up this whole bag. You have dropped this entire bag. How did this happen? Let me talk about media accessibility for a second, okay? During like peak COVID, people are at home all the time times. Remember that? Not that long ago? Not that fun?
I went to work every day.
And thank you, Rudy Salazar, one of our frontline workers. Bless you. You know what, Rudy?
I'm jealous of the people who got the work from home experience.
Rudy, thank you for your service, first of all.
It was a weird time where for like 5 months, I was the only person in this building for like 8 hours at a time.
Yeah.
It was weird,
It
man.
is. That's strange. I keep finding little like trail mix packets just squirreled away in different cubbies and corners of the studios around here, because you just were hiding snacks for yourself. You
didn't know what was going to happen the next day, man.
Right.
You just had to be prepared.
Unlike now, where the world is a much calmer, chiller place.
It's pretty good.
You know what? I'm going to give you a tease, because I know if I don't take a break now, I'm going to talk for 14 more consecutive minutes. I'm going to continue this thread. I'm going to continue being annoyed with baseball whenever we come back. God, what a radio tease. It is still technically light out, so I can give you a radio tease. Josh saves baseball next.
Want more Almost Entirely Sports? Watch the show live on the Sports Radio 810 Facebook page. This is Almost Entirely Sports with Joshua Brisco.
All right, so we thought we would have real baseball at this point, and we don't yet.
On Sports Radio 810 WHB.
This is getting very close to Josh's soapbox hour, so I'll let Rudy talk at some point this segment, and then when we get Seth Keysor back, we can talk about the Kansas City Chiefs and the surrounding issues at hand for them whenever we get around. In about 20 minutes with Seth, talk about Orlando Brown Jr. film review, Trevorius Ward film review, what do you do if he's Brett Veach regarding some undrafted free agents. We'll attempt to get to all those things with Seth coming up here in a little bit. This is more of an anecdote, I guess, than like I don't know. Right? This is an anecdote that I think could be expanded in a significant way if you wanted to learn how media is evolving. And this is just like something that it just feels like baseball is so far behind on. During the peak of COVID round 1, stay-at-home orders and all of that, right? I got to a point where I was, in my free time, relatively routinely, watching videos of people playing Among Us competitively. Among Us, the video game, the little astronauts that walk around on a map and 2 of them kill each other and the other 8 have to figure out who it is as they're dying, 1 or 2 per round usually.
Everybody's super sus.
Everybody's sus all the time. You're probably familiar. I watched a lot of Among Us videos for too long. Now, I wasn't putting it on my TV downstairs and painting my face and watching it as if I was watching a live sporting event. But it's one of the things for me. It was the time that I got into and better understood Twitch as a platform. Even though mostly it started with me watching YouTube videos of Twitch streams, and then it evolves that way.
I learned Twitch because for like 8 hours a day, I was the only person in this building.
Right.
You just start to pick up on things.
And the things that you start watching when they are the things that are... I could right now... I'm probably not going to buy or play Elden Ring. We've talked about this briefly. Seems too hard for me.
If you get a big, beefy PC, maybe, but...
Working on that, by the way.
Until then... until then, you can't.
Can't physically, right.
Yeah, maybe around that time.
But on my phone right now, and I did this already, one of the streamers that I found that I like watching started playing Elden Ring. It's like, you know what? I would like to see the first half hour of this game. So I watched this guy who's not that good at video games, but I find entertaining. And he played the first half hour of Elden Ring. I bailed out at some point. Fine. I've watched. Yes, I'm still young enough to watch people play video games. I know it's something that there is a boomer cutoff somewhere in there that people don't understand. I get it.
You're fine. You're younger than me. I'm doing it. You're fine.
Well, we are somewhere narrowly along that cutoff. You ask.
I think. I think. Here's the thing.
I'm not self-conscious about it. I just think that we're near that line, and that a decent percentage of our audience just went. Why don't you just play the games yourself?
I think I can be watching Twitch for like the rest of my life. I'm just only allowed to watch people essentially my age, right? Like I can't be 70 watching an 18-year-old kid play Fortnite season 73, right? Like
probably.
I've got to be watching a 7-year-old man play Pokemon. Like that's just the dynamic.
I think let's do check in every 10 years or so, but I think as a rule of thumb that's a pretty good one. But but you can be 80 and watching college kids play basketball, so who knows, I guess.
Totally different.
Completely
Completely different.
Well, they do it for the love of the game. And Dan Sorensen. See, you've heard both forms of that thing happen tonight now. What we just did just then is what happens when we are listening to each other. Straight up finishing each other's sentences.
Sandwiches.
I'm not self-conscious about my streamer viewing habits. What I do think, though, is that more people need to go through an experience like that because it changes how you view how other people view your media. And it changes how you view live sports. Right now, I've got a TV on in here. Jeep halftime report on ESPN, North Carolina, Syracuse. I could turn on the TV and watch that right now. In fact, if I was sitting here during a commercial break and I could just flip on the volume really easily, I might actually do that. You know what I have been watching a little bit of over the course of the last 45 minutes? North Carolina and Syracuse. Why? It's just on in front of me. I'm not really paying attention. I don't really know what's happening. I'm not looking terribly closely. In fact, actually, it wasn't the halftime show. They were doing a halftime show. I know North Carolina is up 5 on Syracuse right now because it's on in front of me. If I had to make one remote click to get to Syracuse, North Carolina, I would not be watching it. I do not know what is on ESPN2 right now. Presumably this TV in here is on ESPN1. Anything you want anywhere is available through the internet after some amount of effort. But I started watching Among Us streams because I was out of other options. I found Twitch because of that. I go back to Twitch because it's very accessible. We put this show on Facebook Live and YouTube and Twitch because I want it to be accessible to everybody. For most people, you're listening to this radio show right now because turning on your dial and having it say 810 on it is the most accessible way for you to just freely turn on media. You turn on your radios or plug in your podcasts or sync up your music to your Bluetooth in your car without thinking about it, and then you're just all of a sudden you are doing that. You are consuming media that way. If the one thing that your product is for consumers is difficult to consume, you have blown it. And baseball has been doing this forever. Or at least they have not learned a single lesson from what the rest of the world has been learning over these last several years. There have been baseball games on Facebook Live. That happened a handful of times. I watched one of them.
I think it was once a week. It was like every Wednesday or something, because I remember the Royals were one of those games. So I watched the Royals that day because they were the Facebook Live.
So
game.
I've watched at least 2 then, because I watched the Royals, a good chunk of the Royals one, and I watched some Cubs-White Sox game or something that was just on Facebook at one point. Now that is hilarious because of course they chose Facebook, and it's where you're most likely to find the most current, currently living baseball fans. Sure, it's on Facebook.
Makes sense.
But even expanding it out to Bally not being on YouTube TV and all of those things that come with it.
Or anywhere.
And
when you can find it, it just doesn't work.
And the app not being very good and all of that.
It's the worst.
Those are things. Did you see what Sporting did? Sporting solved this.
Yeah.
Sporting solved this like a week ago. I'll get the actual, I'm going to pull up the actual specifics of it because I meant to talk about it and we never got to it whenever this came out a week or 2 ago. And gosh darn it, if they didn't find their way around. You know why? Because the MLS needs you to be able to see them relatively easily. Sporting wants you to be able to turn on a channel or to turn on your phone or to turn on a stream or to turn on the radio and be able to consume their product because they give a bleep about you being able to watch it. So they put it in front of you. And you know what happens whenever there's content in front of you? You at least give it the time to find out if you think it's interesting or not. You at least give it 2 seconds or 10 seconds or 30 seconds. And then maybe all of a sudden, 10 years later, in your basement that is adorned with Sporting Kansas City memorabilia, you've gone, man, when did that Sporting swing really start for me? Oh, when they were actually playing the games they were scheduled to be playing, and it was easy for me to watch them. That's not hard. But baseball does not appear to actually be interested in that. The Facebook Live thing is oh yeah, no, we're going to get into the streaming game. I want to watch Royals baseball. And here's the selfish millennial that I am, okay? I want to watch all the Royals games that were originally scheduled. I want the players and the minor leaguers to be making the money that they should be making. I hope John Sherman is able to buy his next yacht or whatever. He seems like a pleasant fella. But I want to be able to watch it on my TV. I want to be able to watch it on my streaming platforms. I want to be able to watch it on my computer. I want to be able to watch it on my phone. If iPod Shuffles were still being made, I would want to be able to consume baseball through an iPod Shuffle because that is a threshold that everybody else can meet. You can watch Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives on your TV, your computer, or your phone. It's really easy. You can watch Cake Boss reruns on an airplane. Why is it so hard to watch baseball?
Well, the game is slow. Oh, you mean like literally, not just...
Sometimes the connection is slow, the buffering is slow. I don't know. Rudy, here's the thing, is I think you are more emotionally attached, or at least more willing to give your time to baseball than I am at this point. Like, you watch more baseball in mass than I do.
Yeah.
And you have your dad's login.
Yeah. So like that's a big thing, right? Like accessing baseball for me has generally always been relatively easy until, Bally Sports became a thing because the app is just so bad. Like the mobile app.
Maybe I'm not a good business person here. If you're Major League Baseball and one of the places that's going to have a ton of your teams and a ton of your teams' games, if their app is bad, that is a disqualifier. Fix your app.
Their app on iOS is just bad. It crashes all the time. Their app on my Amazon TV, frequently the audio and the video are not synced up. And I don't know if you've ever watched baseball or anything when the audio and the video aren't synced up, but that ain't fun. It's a real pain. Yeah, I mean, I obviously, I used to watch baseball. I don't watch it the way I used to. I used to watch baseball just all the time. Like, growing up, when I was in high school and even college, like, I watched every Royals game I could possibly watch that was on TV. It was what I did. I do less of that now, and, a lot of that is kind of working. I mean, it's working in the industry. It's also just growing up. Like, I remember there was a baseball game years ago, Royals Cardinals, went to extra innings. There was a rain delay. The game didn't get over till 3 a.m. I stayed up until 3 a.m. watching. You know why? Because I was home for the summer from college.
Sure.
Like, what else does a 21-year-old do, right? Like,
sure.
Like, it's just like I have all the time in the world. I have less time now, and baseball can be very long. And I don't know if I ever realized it was long until I started running the board for games.
Fair.
And you start realizing how long it is. So like that for me probably has done more of has hindered my love of baseball a bit more even so than the actual accessing it.
Mm-hmm.
In part because I personally have never had a hard time accessing it.
Sure.
It's been simple for me. And then in this last year, I technically had access to it. I had the Bally Sports app. I had logins. But it got so frustrating having to close the app 20 times throughout the course of a game because it wouldn't work. Or because I'd be at home watching it and I would just have to stop in the second inning because I'm hearing the clack of a ball being hit before it's left the pitcher's mitt because the video and audio aren't synced up. And I don't want to watch that. I would rather do something else.
I can watch Dune on the toilet. It's 2022. And the other thing, to your point on time, it's a totally valid one.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that I have realized, though, with a 2-monitor setup or even just, laptop and a phone or whatever, baseball's a great background sport.
So great.
Get good coverage of it, like your announcing crews and whatnot, which is, for me, would not be traditional. We can dip into that if we have time next segment. But I watch a lot more. I would never say, if I told you how many hours of YouTube or Twitch or whatever a week I watch, I don't know what the number would be. I'm sure I'd be disgusted by it. Certainly also true for an amount of hours listening to podcasts when I could be reading a book. Well, it's because I wouldn't be reading a book. Audiobooks are, basically that. I wouldn't be reading a book or learning how to paint or whatever because it's something that I'm doing while I'm driving if I'm listening, or something that is on the second screen if I'm working on something else. Which is, again, goes back to, for me, accessibility. I want to give sporting their flowers on what they've done. We'll talk about that whenever we come back.
Did you know you can listen to Almost Entirely Sports anywhere, anytime? Well, you can. Just search for Almost Entirely Sports wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, Kansas City, Steven St. John here for Window Nation. Winter is almost in our rearview mirror. And in a few weeks, when we're feeling the rush of spring air arriving, Window Nation will be feeling the rush of homeowners, calling for new replacement windows. If you call now and beat the rush, you'll get special spring savings, enjoy energy savings sooner, all while upgrading the look and feel of your home. Call or visit windownation.com today and get 2 free windows for every 2 you buy. Plus, you'll make no down payment, no payments, and pay no interest for 24 months. And what makes the deal more amazing is your Window Nation windows are specifically designed for our climate. With Window Nation windows, you get custom crafted quality, Ultra Energy Star windows installed from installers who have been...
This is Almost Entirely Sports with Joshua Brisco.
The baseball's always trying to start with snow on the ground and ending with snow on the ground. Baseball, hey, baseball, are you sure?
On Sports Radio 810 WHB.
This wasn't what I meant when I said your season started too early and ended too late, baseball. I come up with something to... All right, never mind. Baseball is going to give us maybe the wish there of no baseball being played with snow on the ground because they don't like playing in front of people, I guess.
Probably don't need to complain about there being too many games this year.
That's right. They've solved that problem in an untraditional fashion. Somebody else who solved the problem in an untraditional fashion, but in a good way, I'm going to just read you a couple paragraphs here from the release that Sporting put out about 2 weeks ago. Fans will have unprecedented access to Sporting Kansas City match broadcasts in 2022 as the club announced Friday that new platforms to live stream matches and new over-the-air broadcast partnership with 38 The Spot. KCMI TV will serve as Sporting's exclusive local television broadcast partner in 2022 with all 26 locally televised matches available over the air as well as on cable and satellite packages throughout the Kansas City region on 38 The Spot. Shout out to our friends over at 38 The Spot. In addition, all non-nationally televised Sporting Kansas City matches will stream live for free on SportingKC.com and in the Sporting KC mobile app via Sporting One, a new video content feature launching this time for viewers in Kansas and Missouri, excluding the St. Louis area per MLS policy. You have 38 The Spot, KSHB 41 coverage there, but games happening on 38. You have over-the-air radio broadcasts between Sports Radio 810 WHB and ESPN Kansas City. You can watch and listen on the Sporting app, on their website. And if you asked really nicely, I'm guessing that somebody at Sporting would, just hold a cell phone out under Nate Bukaty so you could hear his play-by-play and you could just listen over your phone. They probably wouldn't do that, but it seemed like they'd be willing to try it if they thought it would make it work for you. If you said, I'm going to watch your games, but I don't want to see the actual video, I want to see just a camera on Nate the entire time. Or you know what? Twitch style it. Give me Nate in a little box in the corner and the actual game on in the background. That I would legitimately be even more interested in. Hey, Sporting, some of this was a joke. That part might have been a legitimately good idea. You know how excited Nate gets when he gets to yell about goals. These are the actions here of a sports team that not only wants to play games for you, but wants you to be able to watch them in whatever way is most convenient for you, because they understand the power of that. You don't want to make your people work to find your content. You don't want to make baseball inaccessible in the casual, easy-to-watch way that baseball is so good at being. Baseball is a great on in the background on a random Tuesday viewing. It's perfect for that.
It is.
That's how we all learn to love baseball. It's either on a radio in the background or a TV in the background. You go to games every once in a while, but that's where baseball has its biggest strength. And by making it hard to get to, baseball has taken that away from themselves. I don't love it. Seth Keysor, who I do love, he's next.
You are listening to Almost Entirely Sports with Joshua Brisco on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Slam dunk into winning this March at 7th Street Casino. Play Slam Dunk for Lucky Loot every Thursday for a chance to win your share of up to $60,000 in Lucky Loot. 7th Street Casino in the heart of downtown KCK.
Did you know that investing in real estate is one of the best ways to build wealth and create passive income? Whether you're a seasoned real estate investor or looking for your first investment opportunity, A1 Mortgage has the product for you. If your new investment property will cash flow, it's a go. This is eligible for up to 30 unit properties, no income qualifications, no track record or rental history necessary. Call A1 Mortgage at 816-822-8888. That's 822-8888. As long as your monthly rental income exceeds your monthly payment, you cash flow and it's a go. Let the experts at A1 Mortgage help you build your wealth. Call A1 Mortgage 816-822-8888. That's 822-8888 or apply online at a1mortgage.com.
A1 Mortgage, making your dreams a reality is what we do.
A1 Mortgage Group, LLC, a Kansas and Missouri licensed mortgage company, NMLS 268370. Terms and conditions apply, subject to change without notice.
More energy, better sleep, and so much happier. 40 pounds lighter and still going strong. Shaman's Leewood Total Wellness has changed my life. 2 words, guys, it works. Tell your friends, tell your wife, tell anyone who wants to lose some weight and live a better life. Call or stop by for a free consultation. Mention 810 and get $100 off your startup fee. Shaman's Leewood Total Wellness, 117th and Row in Leewood, or call 913-227-9150. Life is better with the feather.
Whether you plan to spend more time at the gym, in the heated pool, or simply on the couch during the coldest winter months, stretching is an important part of your health and wellness routine. Keep your body healthy, fit, and strong with the assisted stretching programs at Stretch Zone. They'll keep your joints mobile and muscles flexible no matter how cold the weather is. Check them out in Overland Park, Lenexa, Prairie Village, and Lee Summit at StretchZone.com.
Kansas City's hometown sports station. Sports Radio 810 WHB Kansas City.
Building a pool is not a job for amateurs. If you want a pool you'll enjoy for a lifetime, call the pros at Pro-Built Pool and Patio. Pro-Built Pool and Patio is the largest provider of fiberglass pools in the region. Unlike liners, fiberglass pools from Imagine Pools and Pentair Pool Equipment are built to last, and they have over 200 different design options to fit your space. Pro-Built Pool and Patio offers competitive pricing, financing, and the fastest install timelines. Get a free quote by calling 816-786-3890.
Now it is time for very serious football talk with the man who hates money almost as much as he hates the idea of a healthy sleep schedule.
You will find Seth Keysor everywhere except for in his or your bed, because not only does he not sleep, he's also a faithful husband. So that's important.
The man who has so many children, his wife figured he wouldn't even notice if she bought a few chickens and ducks for the backyard.
We should have an episode where we just have my children appear on the show in ascending order. So we'll do like a minute of Lucas, then 2 minutes of Isabel, then 3 minutes of... Man, I have a lot of kids.
The man who does all of this while being a lawyer in a state that has snow all 12 months of the year.
Until it freezes, I'm okay.
Yeah.
I actually felt very at home driving through southern Iowa. It was snow everywhere, and people were slowing down to like 40. It was adorable. I was driving slowly, but I literally was hanging my head out the window screaming, and that was disconcerting.
It's Seth Keysor of the Chief in the North newsletter, The Athletic, and the Times Hours podcast on Almost Entirely Sports.
I don't even know anymore if Seth Keysor Tuesdays really happen on Tuesdays, or sometimes they're on Monday, or whenever there's a Tuesday with no show and a Monday with some show. How do we make it work? What level of depth have we delved into, I guess? During Radio Row Week, Seth, we were telling everybody that, we were sort of existing in various parts of the space-time continuum, because they were, there was live, and then there was things I knew about interviews that were going to play later that I would have only known if it had either been recorded, which it of course never is, or if I could see the future, which occasionally I can. So right now, we're kind of doing a Tuesday-Monday thing here with Seth Keysor of the Chief in the North newsletter, The Athletic, the Times Ours podcast. You can check out his work at mnchiefsfan.substack.com or bit.ly/Seth Really Hates Money. Seth, happy Tuesday, Monday.
Happy Tunday.
Happy Tunday. No, I like that. I like Tunday a lot.
No, it's an exciting time. I just feel like both of our schedules have become so convoluted that anytime you and I get a chance to talk a little bit of Chiefs, I feel like it's a privilege. So we can call it whatever we want.
That's also true. It's Tunday. It's a Seth Keysor Tunday. Yeah, our schedules to this point have been so up in the air. The only thing we're not currently doing is playing a regular season game in Germany, which is what I expect the Chiefs to be doing at some point next year. I don't know if you've tracked that at all. I don't imagine you would be making the trip, but the Bucks are hosting a home game in Germany. The Chiefs have Germany as like a market for them. They play at Tampa Bay at some point this year. I don't have any actual like take to get from you on that. I'm just curious if you even knew about that yet. We don't know. It's not official. Not official, of course.
I heard about that, and the only thing that I find funny is that the NFL, and I suppose this is how it works, like when a team gets plopped in a certain location, but they just they pointed at Germany and said, you shall care about the Chiefs.
Right.
Like,
right.
It's the most NFL thing ever to do. Like, we shall tell you what team you shall cheer for. Like, because it's completely arbitrary, at least in America. Like, there's a geography thing. Like, it's a team that's closer to where you live, so you're more likely to see them live. And you can understand how that started, when the NFL started getting big in, like, the 60s. Like, geography was a lot more important then. But this is just random. It's just like, why not the Chiefs?
Here's my one pitch on the Chiefs and Germany connection. You know the colors of the German flag? Think about it, everybody.
No.
Black, red, yellow. It's right there for the Chiefs taking. It is that right there is a layup. You zoom in on just pure aesthetics. The Chiefs have that. The other thing is that, of course, they are sharing the German international marketing line with the Carolina Panthers and New England Patriots and Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So maybe the Chiefs get an inside track just on color schemes. I don't know. We also found out last week, by the way, that the USFL is playing all of its games in Birmingham this year, despite the fact that they all do have regional team names. So it's just, we're doing fake geography now in sports. That's where we've arrived.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it really does.
That feels like a logical conclusion.
Here's my segue of thing I did today into talking about the newsletter, by the way. Remember in, I don't know, early December, somewhere around the spot where you said, hey, you know what you can do? You can give the gift of the Chief of the North newsletter. And I was like, ooh, that's a good idea. I'll tweet out that I'll give one away to everybody who, to one person who retweets this or whatever it was. And then about a week or so ago, I remember that I hadn't done that ever. I had never actually paid out on that bet, that I had been accidentally committing fraud. And so today, I actually did give away a copy of the Chief in the North newsletter, which you can subscribe to for yourself, dear listener, for $12 a year forever, so I don't have to give it to you. Also, sorry to everybody who I temporarily defrauded. As a lawyer, I think you can clear me now that I've paid it out now. I just forgot. It wasn't on purpose. I just forgot about it.
Yeah, the intent wasn't really there. You should be all right.
I'm going to go ahead and now clip that, save that for my future trial. Because it wasn't, I'll tell you what, it was not an expensive bill to foot. You can, again, $12 for a year if you would sign up for yourself at mnchiefsfan.substack.com. That's incredible. But I was happy to give it away today, which allowed somebody to read a few of the things that have come out since the last time we talked on this show. I don't know if we're going to go chronological order or not, but I re-went through the Orlando Brown film review today, and if anybody else, has not looked at it since we've been having this conversation about Orlando Brown, about the franchise tag, all of that. If you missed this piece completely, whatever, here's your excuse to go back and look at it again, because I thought you were able to ultimately make some pretty good and pretty big, I don't want to say value judgments, but some discerning, hey, look at this, here's where he's been excellent, here's where he has room to improve. This felt to me like a pretty concrete piece on actually judging a player in a way that I don't even know if all film reviews are able to do. Am I overemphasizing how well this went through your eyes? Am I just a Seth Keysor-ite?
Everyone likes a good hype man, for one thing.
I do what I can.
I actually had, because he's hitting free agency, it's a little bit of a different aim than, say, in years past, I'd like to write a Patrick Mahomes film review for, the totality of the 2021 season, during the offseason. But that's just purely informational in terms of, well, how did he play and how might he play next year? And that's interesting to me. I enjoy that stuff a great deal. But when you've got a guy who's entering free agency, you can answer a lot of questions that are corollary to, is he worth paying? Because everyone asks that question, but what some people don't understand is that implicit in that question is a bunch of other questions, right? In terms of value. And that's why I tried. I'm really happy to hear you say those nice things, because that's really what I was going for, was trying to find ways to not just talk about what his film said, but also talk about what that said about what the Chiefs should do with the current decision they have in front of them.
And so I want to just, again, like if you want to look at the charts and you want to read through some of this stuff, you ought to do that through the newsletter. But a couple of like your big takeaways, I wanted to get you to expand on some, or kind of explain how you even got to this point. One of the things that I thought was most interesting is that you make the claim that Orlando Brown can basically turn any pass rusher into the same guy. And there's a whole, one trick ponies, but what happens with that one trick kind of thing? Well, we can come around on that. But what does Orlando Brown do? And what is the thing that opponents have tried and mostly failed to do that he has absolutely eliminated?
Sure. So the biggest thing with Brown is that he is a player with unique traits. He has really long arms, and he's really big. Like, that is, that's where it comes. He's long, he's strong. I'm not going to do the joke, but he is a guy who he has unique physical traits. He moves well, and he's also a strong guy. He's got good upper and lower body strength for a guy that. It sounds crazy when you're talking about a guy who weighs 340 to 350, could be a little bit lean because he's so tall. But because he's got such powerful upper body and arms in particular, these traits cause guys to have to make decisions. And what that means is he moves, he doesn't have great lateral agility, but he's got good enough lateral agility that he moves a little better than you think for his size. And because of that length and strength, guys can't go through him. And because he's got a little bit better agility, a little bit better hips, especially than you'd expect, he can open up his hips and direct guys inside a little faster than you'd think. So when they try to, some kind of fake move, take advantage of his lack of quickness, and then move inside, he's able to open up inside faster than you'd think, and then use, again, those ridiculously long arms and power to send them flying. So you can't go through him. You can't really go inside. In terms of, you occasionally, really, really good pass rushers might be able to move him just enough to try to do a swipe and move inside. Like Trey Hendrickson got him once like that, but it's rare still. And so he's basically taken two of the ways that pass rushers win, and going into the game, you can't win that way against him consistently or even often at all. It's going to be a losing proposition 90, 95, 98% of the time. And so what they do, they have to go around the edge. They've got to become speed rushers. Everyone has to become a speed rusher when they're facing Orlando Brown. And different guys speed rush different ways, right? Like not everyone is Micah Parsons just winning with pure, unbelievable athleticism and bend. Different guys do it different ways in terms of being really good with rip techniques or having a great swat, having a really good lean, whatever. But everyone turns into the same guy trying it in different ways. Everyone becomes a speed rusher when they face Orlando Brown, and there's value to that in that anytime you can eliminate options, it's a good thing, and he does that to everyone. Yeah. So like if you got guys who win more with power, like Carl Lawson, he was a guy that he played last year, but it was a really good example of kind of the same thing that when the Chiefs got him, I talked about this. Lawson's a great power rusher. He couldn't do it against Brown. Yeah. Now, he's a good enough speed rusher that he still got his at times, but you can't do it. Carl Lawson becomes a wannabe Von Miller, right? Although Von wins with power too, so maybe that's a bet. Everyone becomes a wannabe D Ford. Yeah. Like you can only win the one way, and great pass rushers will be able to win that way sometimes. But it's really interesting watching him do that against everyone. Everyone that he faced became a little more one-dimensional.
So I think. Here's like a quick summary, and you can just tell me if any of this is like too strong, but I kind of want to come back around to the one thing that everyone is now trying to do. But going inside is a non-starter. If you end up square against Orlando Brown Jr., you have probably lost. If he punches you, you have lost. If he is where he wants to be, or anywhere other than reaching outside with that left arm, like you are in a terrible spot against Orlando Brown, unless you are doing, as you've said, the D Ford thing. So is all of that fair enough?
Yes,
I don't put
all of
words in your
that's
mouth.
definitely fair enough. I turned it into a whole bit throughout the article of you're going to have a bad time.
Right.
So, like, if you try to go through Orlando Brown, you're going to have a bad time. You try to go inside Orlando Brown, you're going to have a bad time. He doesn't allow people to, don't.
I didn't do anything. I just think it's a funny bit.
Yeah, you're going to have a bad time. It was a lot of fun to write, honestly. And he also, as the year went along, he's worked on various counters rather than just relying on his unique physical traits. He's more of a technician than people give him credit for.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that he started doing more and more as the year went along was doing a little step back. It's a snatch and a trap move when you're grabbing their arm. He's more grabbing the back of the guys' helmets.
Yes.
But he'll take a step back when guys are trying to bull rush him, get them off balance, and then just throw them to the ground. He did it to Trey Hendrickson in one of the most dominant pass rush reps I've ever seen in my life.
It is so good.
Where
It
he
is
just
such a
threw him in
good
the
gif.
ground and then landed. That is the funniest video clip that I think I've done all year. And, like, I did a video clip of Mahomes, like, passing the ball through someone. But he basically throws him to the ground, lands on top of him, and basically, like, he's his big brother, is just has him pinned on the ground, and it's just holding him there. Yeah. It's hilarious. So he eliminates what rushers want to do in 2/3 of the ways they're supposed to be able to try to win.
Okay, so then on the other thing, on the speed around, again, this is where just you have to see a couple of these clips because I want to refer to a couple of them in particular here. But there is this one snap against the Bengals where Trey Hendrickson runs straight around, and literally, not an exaggeration, Orlando Brown Jr. is perfectly behind Patrick Mahomes as Patrick Mahomes goes through his throwing motion. I mean, like, he is 2 yards, maybe a yard behind Patrick Mahomes as Mahomes is looking down the field. This, like, vertically. Yep. They are, like where the center would be to the quarterback, okay? Then you also have this snap, and Mahomes gets rid of the ball just fine. Then you also have this snap, the next gif that you've got in here against the Titans, where it is a very similar rep, but Mahomes does do the thing that I also think it is a really smart point by you to make the point of, hey, you know what else he learned to do? Not other than just drifting back because of how Fisher and Schwartz were playing, but also to drift to the right because Mitchell Schwartz was never getting beat right in that area. Like, sometimes you make habits for good reason, right? I would also drift to be behind Mitchell Schwartz if I was playing a quarterback, but Mahomes isn't anymore. And in this snap, it looks like this disaster of Orlando Brown got whipped here. And in reality, again, these are very similar snaps based off of what the quarterback did differently. So if you take that element of the game, to what extent would you say the speed rush thing is? Would you say that it's more of the Achilles heel, or that it has on some level become overblown because that's the time when we notice things?
It's overblown because that's the time when we notice things. Now, that doesn't mean it's not a problem, right? It's what separates him. If he were high level against edge rushes, against speed rushes, he would be a top 2 offensive tackle and only second to Trent Williams. But he's not terrible at it. Yeah. And you can see that in the fact that his loss percentage is 7%. If it really were as simple as just hit him with the speed rush and you'll win half the time, his loss percentage would be more like 15, 20%. And it's just not. And so what he's really good at doing is he knows guys. So there's 2 things. The first is he knows guys are trying to beat him wide. And so he started, as the season went along, you saw a lot more of an emphasis from him in timing the snap. That dude looked like he false started like 30 times in the second half of the season. And I'm not sure it got called once.
Yeah.
And that's something Mitch Schwartz used to time snaps really well against high-quality speed rushers because you know they're going to try to beat you to the edge. Yeah. And these guys, they're just athletic freaks. You cannot win that fight.
Yeah.
And he knows the snap count. And smart players utilize every edge that they have and understand their strengths and their weaknesses. Mitch Schwartz didn't have a single exceptional physical trait. He obviously did compared to everyone else in the world, but I mean in the world of right tackles, he didn't have any one elite physical trait. But he understood angles. He understood where he could gain tiny advantages. And so, like with Orlando Brown, he has some elite traits, and he has some traits that are a little sub-average, and he seems to have an understanding of this. And he knows if he times the snap count well, because by knowing the snap count, that gives him an automatic edge over any speed rusher, and he can probably beat them to the top of the arc, or at least only be a half step behind. And if
if Orlando Brown is only a half step behind you to the top of the arc, some tackles you can win like that. Not with him. He's too strong. His left arm can just hold you at bay, and then the right arm directs you around. And so what you see with these snaps, so he knows that, and he also knows that people aren't trying to beat him inside, and so he can bail out and chase people up the arc a little sooner than most tackles because he knows they're not going to move it back inside. And if they try, he wins because now they've moved right into him, and he'll throw them to the ground in all likelihood. So
go ahead. You want to land the plane? Okay, I'm going to sneak this in. I'm going to say, because I want to move on. I want to talk about Ward. I want to talk about some of the bigger picture stuff. But for me, I got to the end of this story before I got to your little TLDR at the bottom. But I got through this story, and I mean, I'll show my hand if sometimes I ask leading questions, believe it or not. But it felt like getting beat around the edge is something that, as we've talked about plenty over the course of last season, is something that would get better with time with Mahomes. That his growth also as a tackle is not complete. He's also not Eric Fisher at the end of his last deal because he's just at the end of his rookie contract now. I got through this piece and thought, man, I feel like this unit as a whole, being Orlando Brown and Patrick Mahomes as like a duo, should only get better, which I already had very few reservations about the Chiefs paying Orlando Brown because I felt like they pretty much made that gamble when they traded for him. But you're at the end of this and saying, yeah, he's going to get paid, and it doesn't seem like it would bother you one bit either.
No, it wouldn't bother me one bit. You make a really great point with that. Mahomes, much like Brown, is a player with unique physical traits that cause the mental aspect of his game to get overlooked. It's kind of like the opposite of what happens when you have a player that doesn't have. If you want to know like what people mean when they talk about a player who's really, really smart, who's just got it, it means it's a code for he doesn't have any exceptional physical traits. Like, I don't know, Joe Burrow versus Patrick Mahomes.
Oh,
right?
wow. Oh, man.
That's a way of saying Joe Burrow doesn't have a great arm.
Right.
He's got an okay arm. He's got a good arm. Hey, he's not a great athlete. Really good quarterback, but that's one reason, he's so smart. It's like, you're just noticing a lack of physical traits there.
Right. He's good, but you can't tell why, so he's got to be smart.
Yep, so he's got to be smart. And so, and to be fair, Joe Burrow is very smart.
Sure.
But what guys like Mahomes and Brown, people just assume they're flying off these physical traits, which is ridiculous. The thing about Mahomes, he's a smart guy, he's a smart player. You saw him adjust the way he played in the pocket as the year went along. And this is one area that I think people don't understand how hard what the Chiefs did last year was in totally overhauling their offensive line. And it wasn't just Mahomes getting used to everyone. Mahomes had played his entire career with Mitch Schwartz protecting him on the right side until Schwartz got hurt last year. And you saw the growing pains with that last year. And then last year, Mike Remmers played very competently at right tackle. They had a little more of a revolving door this year. Guys still played okay, but not quite as well. And so he's trying to get used to that. And then he's trying to get used to a player who is of a similar level to peak Eric Fisher. I would say what I've described to people, I think Orlando Brown last year was about 105% of peak Eric Fisher. A little bit better, but I think he did much better against high-level competition.
Yeah.
But he's a very different type of player. And Mahomes had to adjust to that, and I think you saw it as the year went along. And so part of everyone saying, Brown got a lot better as the year went along, part of that is true. Brown did improve, but he wasn't as bad as people thought he was early. It's just a matter of Mahomes had to get used to that. And I think the Titans game was really one of the ones where you saw like adjustments had to be made after, because you can't bail out deep and you can't bail out to the right when you've got a guy that's pushing them wide over and over and over again. And that's what Brown does. He knows guys are trying to beat him wide, and so what he does, he just pushes them wide over and over. He can't dominantly mirror them all the way around the pocket, but he can push them wide over and over and over. And Mahomes has a wide open B gap to scramble through or to just step up into the pocket.
Yeah.
And it's a very different style of play, but it's the ceiling for it is higher than what we saw last year, and last year was pretty darn good.
I was waiting to make the ceiling argument, and then you mentioned it, so I'll let that be the bow on it, because I only feel like I need the last word if it's something that I have a really pertinent point for. Otherwise, I'll just move along, because I don't want to give you the last word. But on this one, you do win. I'm holding the If I Were Brett Veach Part 2 off to the side here to see how much time we have at the end, because I want to play a game with you of do you think this is going to happen or not. I'll work on a snazzier title in the meantime. But you've also written about Charvarius Ward. And I thought about, well, if we didn't talk about Ward, we could spend more time on this game. But I don't want to be part of the problem on the Charvarius Ward front. And the problem is that Orlando Brown is about to hit free agency. Tyrann Mathieu is about to hit free agency. Hell, we might end up talking about Dan Sorensen hitting free agency more than we're talking about Charvarius Ward. And Charvarius Ward is a big freaking deal for the reason that your sort of thesis in the review is that it's hard to be a good corner at the NFL level, certainly hard to be very good, nearly impossible to be great, and that you also need to have lots of those guys, and that every team needs them, and the NFL is changing. And Charvarius Ward, spoiler alert, but he is in a category that you make the point of like, hey, this is really valuable. I also don't know. I don't know how valuable it is to the Chiefs, which kind of freaks me out a little bit because I'm also envisioning a world without Charvarius Ward on this defense, and it's spooky. So walk me through a little bit of kind of where you're at with Charvarius Ward. People can look at the process of it and can get all the gifts and everything. I don't know how you can listen to this segment and not be subscribed to this newsletter for $12 a year. Like, it kind of feels dumb for me to keep repeating it because I just want to talk about it to people who have also read it. But give me kind of the place you're at now on Charvarius Ward.
Sure. So the thing with Ward is kind of like to build off what you said. It's hard to be a good corner in the NFL. It's even harder to be a good corner consistently in the NFL. And Ward has done that. Ward has been a good corner for 3 years. He had his best season last year, which, people can talk about contract years and their fears regarding that, and I get that. But he has, so from his first year starting to his second year starting, I didn't see much of a jump. I did see more of a jump this last year. It's hard to be consistently good in the NFL, and it's almost impossible to be great as a corner anymore. Ward was asked to shadow teams' best receivers at times. He didn't chase them into the slot, but he did travel side to side, which only Bashaud Breeland did that previously, which says something because Spags really trusted Bashaud Breeland. And so he really took over the mantle of, this is the dude we know is our most consistent corner. There's a lot of value in that. But more so, here's how I would describe Charvarius Ward. And I think we should reevaluate the way we talk about corners in general in the modern NFL. Because we always he's not a shutdown corner. No one is anymore, especially against really good receivers. Just ask Jalen Ramsey in the Super Bowl. Not the play where he got his face mask ripped off, because that wasn't his fault. But I mean, Jalen Ramsey got him Jamar Chase got him a few times because that's the modern NFL. You have every disadvantage against these mutants at wide receiver. So you're not looking for someone that's going to constantly shut guys down. You're not going to find Darrelle Revis. You're just not. Can you find someone that forces them to play really well to beat you? And you force them to do it snap after snap, and unless that receiver runs a real good route or makes a real good catch and the quarterback makes a real good throw, you've got them. That's what you need out of a corner. And you know what? That's really hard to do consistently, but Charvarius Ward does it. And there's a lot of value in that. Now, the thing is he as consistently high level in coverage, as a J.C. Jackson? Is he quite as much of a ball hawk? No, he's not. So he is not an elite corner. The question is kind of twofold. Do the Chiefs think he's good or really good? Which sounds like a dumb distinction to make. But the second part is he going to get offered good money or really good money on the market? Because I would say, I think if you got the version of Charvarius Ward you got last year, and even the year before, and honestly, even the year before, if you paid that guy somewhere between $11 to $15 million a year, I don't think you'll regret it. I think the question is that what he's going to get on the market? And that's where it gets a lot more complicated. And then, of course, the question becomes, well, why don't you just pay J.C. Jackson, if he hits the market, $20 million a year?
Right.
Rather than Ward, $15 million. And that's where that cost-benefit stuff comes from. And the big thing, so the messaging for that one isn't nearly as clear as with Brown, where it's just extend him, get him signed to a long-term deal. It's worth it. It helps Mahomes. It's a good thing. With Ward, it's a little more complicated in that cost is going to matter a little more, but he would be really hard to replace unless they go out there And Brett Veach seems like a guy that might go out there and make a big splash signing at corner. And if that's the case, fair enough, because then you've got Snead and Fenton as your 2 and 3, and that's a really good corner trio.
Mm-hmm.
Thing is, Ward, Fenton, and Snead is already a really good corner trio.
Right.
And so then you ask yourself, is that something you're willing to break up? Because that was a strength on their team last year once they kind of settled down from some early blown coverages hiccups.
Mm-hmm.
And Ward has been part of the solution for several years, especially last year. So it's just a matter of he's not an elite player, and so that's where these value decisions come in with free agency. Can you pay a guy like that elite money? I don't think you can. But you can pay him good money, and I think you'll be happy with it because they've got enough problems on defense that they need to work out, especially on the line, that becoming weaker at corner, that's bad.
Right.
That's now you've opened up a whole new area of weakness. So my big message to Chiefs fans is to understand he's harder to replace than people realize.
So there's so many things about this that I think are a legitimately fascinating conversation. Like I just have written down 3 things that I like. Just one, you mentioned that he's been good and consistent over these last few years in particular, right? We've talked about in years past, cornerback play is not very consistent and it is not very predictive.
Right.
Like it's not quite random. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it's something that we do. It can be very frequent where you see a corner be I'm picking random numbers, but a top 20 guy one year and then totally toast the next year. Like that kind of thing happens. I mentioned top 20 because I don't know if you have a number in mind, but to me it feels like everybody would say. There's not a team in football that would not take Charvarius Ward and have him start and play 90% of the snaps. Like he is playing. I think there might be a specific team I'm not thinking of. I don't know about the Rams, but like Charvarius Ward is playing for every team in this sport, and he is on the field for everybody. I think that my inclination is to say like, oh, Charvarius Ward is like maybe the best number 2 corner in football. Okay, just to be hyperbolic. But the issue is that implies that he's like 33rd, and I think he might actually be better than that. And if he's worse, it doesn't really matter. The issue is that there might be 5 number 1 corners and 45 number 2 corners, and the numbers just don't quite add up the way that we usually think about this position.
Yep, and that's where the cost comes into play.
Right.
Because Ward could be a guy, like it makes you rethink what does it mean to be a number 1 and a number 2 corner.
Yeah.
And one of the things I'm curious if teams are starting to think right now is maybe we're better off having 3 good players than, kind of the analysis everyone always tries to do with free agency but doesn't necessarily work out. Maybe we're better off with 3 guys who are above average than 1 guy who's great, 1 guy who's average, and 1 guy who stinks.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a different way of looking at it that might actually work with corners. The other thing is even your good corner, your top 20 corner is going to get burned sometimes.
Right.
And so it's depressing.
Yeah, it is. Playing defense is impossible, and I don't know. This is one that like you said, it's not cut and dry. You don't end up at an easy and relatively easy solution like you did with Brown. Where it's like, yep, he's here, tag him, then pay him, and you're good. Because you have to wait and see what the market ends up showing. I wish they would have gotten something done before this last season, but I have the benefit of a rearview mirror and no accountability on that, so take that with a grain of salt, I suppose. Do you want to play the game where I go through? I'm not going to read every single person on this list. Go read the article, people. But I have a few names to me that jumped out on your list of unrestricted free agents that the Chiefs should allow to walk. Some of these I think are just unlikely. And I want to know how likely you think it is, because this isn't your prediction. This is what you would do. And also, I think there are a couple that I might be able to build up an argument against. So it felt like a fun radio segment. I don't know. Let's not let this ruin our friendship.
I think that sounds fair.
We'll keep it civil. You can read it at the Chief of the North newsletter. Seth, I think you're a GD idiot for thinking that the Chiefs are finally going to cut Dan Sorensen, you big moron. Let's make sure we do keep it civil. Let's keep it civil, please.
I think it's very likely they move on from him this year. I think the fact that he got, by and large, benched to an extent, even though he wasn't entirely benched, like Spags couldn't entirely quit him. I just don't see them. At a certain point, this is still a business. And I do think while it's only a very, very tiny amount, I do think there's a little amount that public outcry comes into play and the fan base completely freaking out.
and him being brought back, regardless of price, would make everyone freak out. And normally teams don't care, right? They care about results. But I have a hard time picturing Spags in a room with Andy Reid convincing him that that's worth it. I just have a hard time buying it.
Here's my one. You and I cannot make bets because we have outstanding bets we have not paid off yet, and I don't want to add more bets to our list. But if I could bet on a world where the Chiefs let Tyrann Mathieu walk, if you say, hey, Matthew is somewhere else, I would be willing to bet that Dan Sorensen is back under that, like, he's our old guy, like, tag. I don't know that there's a roster spot for that. He becomes an OS, like an old safety. But also, I hope you're right. So I wanted to get what you actually think might happen there.
Gosh, I hope I'm right too.
I do too. Demarcus Robinson. I completely. I don't think we got to go through a ton of this on this show. But your piece on the Chiefs maybe needing a second offensive weapon or not. You also kind of had this stance of, hey, the Chiefs need to really kind of rip the wide receiver room down to the studs and build back up again. And I just think you've got I'm taking issue with two guys where you have the Chiefs breaking their tendencies, and I am afraid to be hurt again.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm definitely afraid to be hurt again. And, I like DeMarcus Robinson just fine. The problem with him is last year, which was like his fifth with the team or something like that, he saw his role, even though he was still on the field a ton, he saw his role in the offense actually being targeted, reduced drastically, probably about cut in half. And Byron Pringle took a lot of those looks. And at this point, I understand the value of, a guy who knows the system, a guy you can rely on, and that kind of stuff. But really, Robinson's production last year didn't indicate that he could come in and fill that role occasionally that you need. And that, to me, means it's time to look for a higher ceiling. And that's where, to me, I view the decisions on Robinson and Byron Pringle to be very similar, except Byron Pringle is better in the offense right now. And so if you're going to pick a guy who knows the offense, that you think can come in, play, a third of the snaps, unless there's an injury, then he plays more, that's Byron Pringle. You don't need two guys like that. You need one guy like that, and then you need to get some fresh, new talent in the room that maybe has a higher ceiling.
I agree with all of that from an evaluation standpoint, and I lean towards Robinson not being back, and because not only you said Byron Pringle's better, he also, to your point, his role increased and Robinson's decreased. So I think that one actually, I think I would agree with you on that. It's just an interesting one. I'm going to circle back to one that I'm skipping here, but as you make the note in your piece, Ryan Tracy's never going to talk to you again. Why do you think the Chiefs are not going to have a fullback on the roster for what I believe would be the first time in Kansas City with Andy Reid at helm?
I don't think it's very likely that they do that. I think odds are they retain Burton, and I will be very, very, very happy for him. It's just not what I would do.
Yep.
Because of, I think the fullback position, unless you've got like a juice check type guy that adds a ton to the receiving room as well and gives you a lot of diversity in terms of what you can do with him, I just don't think fullback is worth it. I don't think, people are like, oh, well, I thought you wanted to run the ball more this next year. I really think they probably should, for all the reasons you and I have talked about this year with how teams are playing them. But the way to run the ball with the way the Chiefs are built is to spread out the field and run that beast of an offensive line against the light box. And if you bring a fullback in, it just brings another defender in. And your best case scenario is that fullback blocks that guy and it's neutral. That's your best case scenario, is a neutral outcome by bringing another guy into the box. Now, that's oversimplifying, but it's also largely true. So I just don't see enough there to where you could bring in another tight end or another wide receiver who I think, or you could just have an extra running back, because running backs are always getting hurt. And, maybe you tell, Darrell Williams, and that changes another part of the analysis I made. You tell him, hey, we're going to have you taking fullback type snaps this year too, if you want to stay with the team, because he can do all the things that Michael Burton can do.
I agree with all of that. Please, nobody send this podcast to Ryan. But I was going to literally say, I don't know what you can only do with Michael Burton that you can't do with some sort of amalgamation of Darrell Williams and Blake Bell. I don't.
Right. And that's exactly where I'm at. Bell did some good stuff this year in terms of blocking. He's a guy worth thinking about bringing back. And can't he line up
when you really need someone lined up as a fullback, you're telling me Blake Bell can't do that? I think he can.
Do you know what
And
percentage of
that's
offensive snaps Michael Burton played this year? I looked this up earlier today for a thing I'm doing.
It was very low.
It is 8%.
And that's a roster spot that has a lot of value. You can have a tight end or a backup running back take those 8%, and you can have another roster spot. You can, everyone's like, oh, maybe they should draft another tight end. Yes, and see what Jody Fortson can do.
Yes.
And keep Blake Bell.
Yes.
Like, there's just guys that can add more to the offense as the offense is currently run. I don't like saying that because I've seen Michael Burton do I've seen him do some of the stuff with Ryan. He seems like a really good dude, and you know how I feel about good dudes. And
you will talk about Michael Burton for years, regardless of if he's on this team or not.
Right. And hey, people are like, well, he converts those short yardage plays. He does, but that's more of a function of the play and the fact that he is strong. You can give those carries to another big dude who is strong. And so I don't like it, but I'm just saying what I would do, not really what I would like doing.
This is, I'm going to put you on the spot and just see if you can guess. There's one name that we have not mentioned yet that is, I think, and I don't actually disagree with your analysis, but I certainly think that I would lean towards this player being back, and I think, somewhere within my soul, I think this player should be back. With estimating the value and all of that stuff. Do you have a guess as to where I may split with you on this analysis ever so slightly?
I'm guessing Darrell Williams.
Oh, actually, it's 2. It might be 2. I would like to have Darrell Williams back, but I just I like tweeting barrel gifts whenever he does stuff. No, that was not the player that I had in mind, though. I actually glossed over that. The player that I have in mind is Ben Niemann.
I got to admit, had you given me multiple guesses to get that right,
I wasn't going to make you guess.
With my life on the line,
I
would not be alive currently. I did not see that coming.
Here's my thing. Here's my quick thing, and then I want you to actually give your analysis. And look, this idea that you have put there is, listen. If I'm Brett Veach, I am taking the sharp toys, I am taking the drawer lock for children, and I'm putting it on Steve Spagnuolo's linebacker drawers. And I'm saying, Steve, you're doing a great job for the most part, but I'm not going to give you Ben Niemann or Dan Sorensen because I do not trust you to use them appropriately at this stage. I think that is hilarious and also totally fair. I also think that there maybe there's something to having a guy in the linebacker room who's been there for more than ostensibly a year and a half, if you want to give Willie Gay some of that space. He's obviously had his injuries and wasn't getting fully trusted in the defense, which is, again, I think maybe back to your original point. I actually think that I could make an argument for Ben Niemann as linebacker 3.5. Ideally, he's your fourth guy, and maybe you have another young guy that you bring in as a fifth-round pick or something. But I don't know. I was a little bit surprised to see Niemann on this list, and that's my very light counterpoint. What walk me through it for you?
It's funny that you caught on to that, because the reality of the situation is, if I trusted Steve Spagnuolo to treat him like the third linebacker, I would be probably in favor of them bringing him back, because that's a role that I don't think he's terribly unfit for. The problem is I don't trust Steve Spagnuolo to do that.
Yeah, totally fair. Totally fair.
Sometimes you have to protect the people you love from themselves. My example of this would be, I have a lot of kids. We live on a little bit of acreage, and so we have a pellet gun. I don't allow my children to play with the pellet gun at random times.
Sure.
Because I'm afraid they'll hurt themselves.
Yep.
And it's not because I don't love them. It's because I do love them. And Ben Niemann is Steve Spagnuolo's pellet gun. He will put his eye out with that thing.
I mean, I'm just gotta write down the phrase. Come on, pen. I need this to work. And this color's not gonna work. I have a multicolored pen I really like using. Okay, hold on. Ben Niemann is Steve Spagnuolo's pellet gun. And Rudy, if you want to go ahead and just save yourself the trouble, there's the title for the hour of the podcast, and we're good to go. Thanks, Seth. You really made all of our jobs pretty easy here tonight. If you want to read the full piece, there are plenty of names we did not mention here. Also, the Chiefs have a lot of unrestricted free agents coming, by the way. But if you want to look at that entire list and a few names across the offensive line, several others that you'll recognize in the Chief of the North newsletter, plus part 3, I know you said is on the way, and we will. We might be able to talk about that on an upcoming episode of Times Ours, another place where you can hear this man's voice, also my voice, and also a third person's voice. Mystery, you got to go find out. You can go get Times Ours wherever you get your podcasts. You can check out the newsletter at mnchiefsfan.substack.com, bit.ly/SethHatesMoney for $12 for a year. And you get it renews at that price as well, because Seth truly does hate your money. Seth, thank you for making the time for us here on this Tunday.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Take the show with you wherever you go. Listen live on the Sports Radio 810 mobile app and 810WHB.com.
This ad for Hellsberg Diamonds has been specifically written for those who'd rather think about hockey than engagement rings. You're at a game and your team scores the winning goal just as time runs out. Now, if that game is your proposal and you're running out of time to find the perfect engagement ring, Hellsberg Diamonds is your winning shot. Our combination of quality diamonds, wide selection, and a price match guarantee means you can be confident in your Hellsberg Diamonds engagement ring buzzer beater. Visit your local Hellsberg store and ask about our amazing financing options, or check us out at hellsberg.com.
Hey, Kansas City, Stephen St. John here for Window Nation. Winter is almost in our rearview mirror. And in a few weeks, when we're feeling the rush of spring air arriving, Window Nation will be feeling the rush of homeowners, calling for new replacement windows. If you call now and beat the rush, you'll get special spring savings, enjoy energy savings sooner, all while upgrading the look and feel of your home. Call or visit windownation.com today and get 2 free windows for every 2 you buy. Plus, you'll make no down payment, no payments, and pay no interest for 24 months. And what makes the deal more amazing is your Window Nation windows are specifically designed for our climate. With Window Nation windows, you get custom crafted quality, Ultra Energy Star windows installed from installers who have installed over 1 million windows. I'd say yes. Get 2 free windows with every 2 you buy, no limit, plus no payments for 2 full years. Call 866-90-NATION or online at windownation.com. That's 866-90-NATION or windownation.com, and tell them SSJ sent you.
As an employer, are you having a hard time finding great people for your company? Let Sports Radio 810 help you with your search. Many local companies are taking advantage of the 810 Jobs Connection program. Recruitment is tough right now. The online search engines are packed with all your competitors. Sports Radio 810 Job Connections is a turnkey program designed to help you find your next hire. For more information, contact Sandy Cohen at scohen@unionbroadcasting.com. That's scohen@unionbroadcasting.com.
It's Family Leisure's Factory Direct Hot Tub Sale. We have hot tubs coming in every week. No need to wait for months. Come get your dream hot tub today. Family Leisure also has pools in stock for spring installation. Don't go another summer without a pool for your family. Come in and see our huge selection of patio furniture. Family Leisure is your one-stop shop for pool tables, shuffleboard, bar stools, and home theater seating. All priced to go. Mention 810 and save more at Family Leisure in Olathe.
913-888-7727. Awesome!
What's got 8 letters, is Italian, and makes you happy and full? Calzones, that's what. 3 new calzones are now being served at Schlotzsky's. There's the Italian, with ham, 2 types of salami, pepperoni, and mozzarella cheese. The barbecue chicken and jalapeno, with sliced chicken, bacon, jalapenos, and onions. And the French dip, piled high with roast beef, caramelized onions, and mushrooms. These calzones are here for a limited time, so get to Schlotzsky's on the double and try one today. You won't be disappointed. Schlotzsky's, these calzones are a mouthful.
Kansas City's home of the Jayhawks, March Madness, and the Final Four. Sports Radio 810, WHB.
Jalen ahead to Oates. Right-hand runner good. He caught it. He shot it. And Bruce Weber wants a timeout.
Tuesday at 7, Kansas faces TCU. Coverage of Kansas basketball on Sports Radio 810 WHB is brought to you by Hy-Vee, Buck Roofing, Harry's Brewery Collection, Victory Ford, and 23rd Street Brewery.
Not a lot of almost entirely sports left here tonight, believe it or not. But Josh, it's barely almost 8 o'clock. What do you mean? You guys are usually on 7 to 10. Well, we started an hour early tonight, friends. If you missed any of that, we got to be on from 6 to 7 before we had Seth Keysor join us at the beginning of the hour. But if you want to go back and catch that podcast, you can do it wherever you get all of our show. If it's live on these airwaves, we podcast it over on the Almost Entirely Sports podcast feed, wherever you get your podcasts. But also, we will step to the side for a little bit of Big Monday action here tonight as well. We're getting Baylor versus Texas from 8 o'clock on throughout the remainder of the evening here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. College basketball season it's going to be ramping up. The regular season's almost over. I know we don't do a ton of college basketball on this show, but it's getting really crunch timey. And a couple of good teams in the Big 12 in the state of Texas coming to you tonight here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Thanks again to Seth Keysor for joining us this hour, and usually these conversations become the vast majority of the hour, but I wanted to circle back on a couple of little things, if we have time, on both Ward and Brown and a lot of the moves the Chiefs are looking to be making now with free agency just around the corner, specifically to Seth's point on Charvarius Ward. And this is a funny place to be because I think my answers and my opinions on this particular slice of this topic has evolved over time, which is allowed. You're welcome to have your opinions evolve. But I look at the idea of stars and scrubs team building, a bunch of average guys team building. You can't build a team out of nothing but stars. And really, I guess the truth of it all is that you can't build your team out of nothing but expensive players. But there's no guarantee that a veteran who's quote-unquote proven it will be worth the deal that he signs with a new team. Frank Clark, not to bag on Frank Clark, but he did not live up to the price the Chiefs were paying for him, both in draft capital and in salary, even though he had, quote-unquote, proven it in Seattle. On the other side, you might get your Mike Dana, who you make as a day 3 draft pick, and he plays a rotational role with your team, and you're happy to have him along for the ride the rest of the way. Great. L'Jarius Sneed could end up being a star-level guy, but he's getting to that point on his rookie contract where he's most valuable. Charvarius Ward has been a steal for this team since they brought him in from that trade for Parker Enger, right? He was an undrafted free agent for the Cowboys, and they make a swap there, and I've not heard much from Parker Enger since then. Hope he's doing well. But the Chiefs clearly got the better of that deal. They got the better of Charvarius Ward. And now, even after that entire conversation we just had with Seth, I don't know what to tell you. My hunch, I'll tell you, is that some team is going to pay Charvarius Ward probably above. I'm really pulling this number out of thin air, so this is more for the illustration of the conversation than for that real topic. But let's say Charvarius Ward is the 25th best quarterback in the NFL right now, just for 1 year, whatever. I think that some team probably pays Charvarius Ward as he's a top 15 or top 20 corner, right? Maybe he gets to deal with the 15th best deal because he's hitting free agency, and every free agent class kind of creates new money for themselves, and the cap's going up and all of that. And I could see the Chiefs saying, hey, we would love to have you around. We loved having you around as a undrafted free agent rookie deal type of player. We loved having you around for whatever it was, about $3 million. We'd love to have you around for $6 or $7 million. But we're not going to go 12 or 15. And I would understand that. That's where decisions like this, where I do think we kind of force a binary in a lot of places in sports talk and salary cap and team building and all of that. Hey, is this player worth this much money? I do think at this point that Orlando Brown Jr. is a good investment with what he has shown so far. No player is ever really getting paid for what they're about to do, though. They're kind of getting paid for what they've done, what you think they're going to do. There's a huge amount of variance there. But if there's going to be a time, in 2 years when I'm talking about how I'm crushing Orlando Brown and his terrible contract, you can send me this clip, you can send me this hour, and you can say, hey, this is whenever you really liked you liked the move. Seth talked you into it, whatever. And I'd say, okay, fine. Right now, I think Orlando Brown is, the number could evolve some, but I think that he'll sign for a number that I'll be happy with. I really don't know what Charvarius Ward is going to end up being valued at by the rest of the league, which makes the evaluation part right now really, really difficult. Go read the story for yourself in the Chief from the North newsletter and enjoy some Big 12, Big Monday action tonight right here on Sports Radio 810. No show tomorrow because KU basketball, but we'll be back for a late one on Wednesday, 9 to 11 on Wednesday, so we will talk to you then. Until then, bye, Mom.
You're listening to Almost Entirely Sports with Joshua Brisco on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
More energy, better sleep, and so much happier. 40 pounds lighter and still going strong. Shaman's Leewood Total Wellness has changed my life. 2 words, guys, it works.